Voyager's tracking an asteroid approaching a planet. There's some tense music and serious faces, so I presume it's inhabited, and two important-looking guys have managed to wrangle safe seats up here instead of staying with everybody else, so they're probably politicians. We fired a firework at the rock and it kabooms, but not as much as we were expecting based on scans. This seems to be a familiar story to the important guys, who tell us that the same thing happened previously. We managed to poop away most of the fragments, leaving only two that hit the surface. Looks like someone's weaponizing asteroids, and weird ones at that. We get a call from the surface. One of the spots that got hit had a scientist in it, and he's checked over the debris from previous asteroids. He says they look artificial before we lose the signal, so we're going to send some teams down in shuttles and try to find him, as we can't teleport the guy due to interference from the impact. We'd best hurry, too, as there are more asteroids incoming, and the next one is going to hit a populated area. One of the teams contains Neelix and Tuvok, so I guess we're having an odd couple episode. The shuttle's also carrying one of the important guys, which technically makes it an odd thruple. Quite why he'd need to be present for a rescue mission is beyond me, but perhaps the scientist is his husband or something. After a bit of turbulence, the writers remember that we're in a shuttle, and think crashing would be a unique plot twist, so we do that. Back on the ship, Kim notices we've lost contact, and Chakotay lets the other shuttle team know to keep an eye out. While we wait, B'Elanna calls Chakotay to tell him that she grabbed one of the asteroid fragments, so he pops down there with the other important guy, who he calls Ambassador, logically making the first guy's name not Ambassador. Tuvok, Neelix, and not Ambassador have managed to make it safely-ish to the ground. They're joined by Scientist and a random miner from the area who saw the shuttle crash and came to investigate. Not Ambassador wants to know what Scientist has found out about the asteroids, but Scientist refuses to speak to him and says it's classified. He'll only speak to the Ambassador once we get back to the ship. Bad news though, as the shuttle is completely bollocksed and won't be going anywhere. Tuvok orders Neelix to check on a sensor thingy outside so they can try and send a signal for rescue, and while he's out there, he sees what's either a very tall tower or an orbital tether. We confirm it's the latter, and the attached carriage transports cargo to a supply point in orbit. Neelix suggests we can use it to escape the atmosphere and contact Voyager. Despite Tuvok's hesitancy, and learning that the carriage was damaged during an asteroid impact, we pop over to have a look based on Neelix saying he spent a couple of years maintaining similar systems back home. We arrive and take a look around. Curious, it looks like someone's been here. Oh, there she is. The squatter threatens to cut Neelix's throat if Tuvok doesn't drop his weapon, which seems like a great chance at plausible deniability to me, but Tuvok perhaps decides he doesn't want to do the paperwork and complies. She thinks they're here to take her supplies, until being reassured that this isn't the case and that we just want to get the fuck out of Dodge. Miner suggests that perhaps Squatter can come too, and she relaxes enough to not kill Neelix, seemingly taking our merry group to a total of 6. To engineering, where we're hitting the mystery sabotage rock with a pickaxe. We snap it in half to discover it's filled with techno-gubbins. B'Elanna identifies it as a guidance system of some sort, confirming to Ambassador that someone's throwing rocks at his planet on purpose. Just as well then that Tuvok and Neelix are nearly ready to scarper. The orbital tether carriage is mostly repaired, with just the oxygen generator and the connection to the tether to work on, which both sound pretty important to me, but I'm sure it'll be fine. While working, Neelix sparks up a conversation with Squatter, where he suggests the carriage should be given a name and, when none is forthcoming from her, offers the name of one of his sisters. He expands a little on his family and the fact that they're all dead, killed during the war referenced previously in the episode Betrayal, and, incidentally, we again attribute no blame for how that conflict started. He bonds a little with Squatter based on her also having a sister, and one she's not seen since the first asteroid impact a few weeks back. They're interrupted by Tuvok calling Neelix a cunt for chatting instead of working, which, given their impending death via asteroid, is probably a fair point. Later on, we're getting ready for the launch when we hear a noise. It's the sound of the carriage powering up, which is a bit of a problem as only Scientist is currently inside it. Looks like the bastard plans to leg it without the rest of them. Tuvok puts a flashy gizmo on the lock to break in, then performs the famous Vulcan sleep massage to give him a little nap. We're too late to stop the launch, so in we all get and off we go. Not to worry, I'm sure the things we haven't fixed yet aren't important and the climb will be entirely without incident. We're climbing the tether, but it's far from a smooth ride. A bit of shaky camera work lets us know how bad it is, whilst also making it a complete bugger to get any decent screenshots, so thanks for that. Tuvok tells us we're about to fall off, which seems like a pretty poor design choice to me, but let's ignore that for now. Neelix says the solution is to go faster, so we try that while Not Ambassador does a bit of pant shitting. A bit of the carriage kabooms while Neelix pulls on the go faster handle and the camera work settles down a bit, so I presume it worked. There is one slight issue. That kaboom was one of the oxygen generation thingies, so if we can't improve the other, there's a chance we're all going to suffocate. No time for that now, as Squatter's going to throw Scientist out of the door. She's a bit miffed that he was going to leave without them, and she does rather have a point. Tuvok didn't let Neelix live just to fill out paperwork for someone else though, and steps in to stop her. Minor takes issue and throws a punch, causing Tuvok to do that squeezing his fist thing that writers use when they want to demonstrate strength. Suitably chastened, Minor disengages. Looks like this ascent is going to get a little bit fruity. Back on Voyager, Janeway's taking a call from Paris and the other shuttle team. No joy finding Neelix, Tuvok or Scientist, and they're going to have to scarper soon due to a dust storm. That's largely academic, as Kim tells us another, larger asteroid is on its way, and it'll be landing in a couple of hours. Our group of 6 in the Tether carriage are starting to have a few issues with breathing. Well, most of them anyway. Tuvok has Vulcan mega lungs, meaning he's going to be fine for a lot longer and, after giving the others shots to help oxygenate their blood, starts to learn the carriage controls. Or tries to, anyway, as there's a bit of a scuffle by the door. Scientist wants to get outside, saying there's something on the roof, before he collapses, goes into shock, and then carks it. Curious thing though, it wasn't the lack of oxygen that killed him. Indeed, Tuvok tells us he believes that Scientist was murdered. Specifically, he was poisoned by someone putting coolant from the carriage into his water. Tuvok thinks this isn't important enough to investigate right now, which is a curious choice when you're trapped with a mystery murderer, but let's see where this is going. Neelix doesn't seem that bothered by a guy being dead either, instead being more concerned about his interest in the roof. Tuvok dismisses his desire to investigate, and this proves to be the final straw on Neelix's bag. He slows the carriage, using a different lever to the one that he used to speed it up earlier incidentally, and starts calling Tuvok a condescending twat. He points out that Tuvok has spent 3 years treating Neelix with contempt and disdain, which, whilst true, is also entirely deserved. Tuvok isn't planning on changing his mind about the roof anytime soon, but the matter is forced upon him when Neelix refuses to continue driving until someone checks it out. Minor and Not Ambassador both unvolunteer themselves, causing Neelix to offer, until Tuvok overrules him, saying that he'll go himself. But not until he spits a pissy one-liner at Neelix while climbing the ladder. On the roof, he discovers 2 things: the limitations of green screen technology in the 90s, and a hatch. The latter discovery is open to reveal a green gizmo, which Tuvok is somehow able to realise doesn't belong there, despite it having its own little cradle to sit in. We do a bit of a scan, and Tuvok gives Neelix a call, telling him that he's found something that contains data about a hidden alien ship and will be bringing it in. Just bringing it in without telling Neelix would have seemed the more logical choice to me, but I guess we needed the phone call so that Not Ambassador could overhear it. You see, he's climbing up to the roof himself, apparently quite interested now that something has been discovered. And he's really rather insistent, pushing Neelix off the ladder and knocking him out, which is quite a choice considering he's the only pilot. Not Ambassador reaches the roof, and a bit of a scuffle ensues, during which the guy with greater strength and training gets thrown off, which must be terribly embarrassing for him. Not Ambassador grabs the green gizmo and the gun Tuvok dropped before climbing back inside, leaving a presumed dead Tuvok clinging to the side of the carriage, and wondering how he's going to explain all this in his report. Back on Voyager, we have a closer look at the now imminent asteroid. Surprise! It's actually a ship that was sending out science thingies to make us believe it was a rock. They claim the planet and threaten to kill us if we don't piss off, which clearly Janeway isn't going to do, not when staying gives us an opportunity to show off our mood lighting. To the carriage, where a groggy Neelix sees Tuvok gurning through the window. He crawls over to the door panel and manages to open it, letting Tuvok swing inside. Not Ambassador flails around a bit in the wind and drops that green gizmo, while Tuvok rushes in and starts kicking the shit out of him. One final boot to the belly, and Not Ambassador takes a dive out of the still-open door, his fall being some of the least convincing CGI that I've ever seen, and that includes the film Birdemic. Tuvok closes the door, a process that takes no fewer than 8 button presses, which feels like a bit of a safety issue to me, and checks on Neelix. After a brief thanks for opening the door, Tuvok informs us that the green gizmo contains tactical data on the hidden ship, presumably the one that pretended to be a rock. Tuvok surmises that Not Ambassador was working with them, hence murdering Scientist and trying to recover the green gizmo. I look forward to the excellent explanation of why Scientist had detailed data on the weaknesses of an invading force. We'll get to that later, no doubt, but for now we need Neelix to pilot the carriage. Problem is, he's a bit fucked up and isn't sure he can manage it, so Tuvok invokes the name of his sister, saying she'd be proud of him, which is either a show of empathy or emotional manipulation, depending on which way you look at it. Fair play to Neelix, he sees it for the motivation it is, but gets up anyway and goes to the console to get us moving. As an aside, he uses the first lever again, so I guess we have one control for go faster and a completely different one for go slower. With designs like that, quite frankly, they deserve to be invaded. Speaking of which, the pretend rock ship has arrived and starts pooping at Voyager. We poop back but can't get through their shields. Help may be at hand as the carriage gets high enough to contact Voyager, calling for hugs all round, whether they're wanted or not. Tuvok signals Voyager and Janeway asks if they're okay. A point to Tim Russ here for Tuvok giving Minor a filthy bit of side-eye before responding that he's fine. They're all teleported aboard Voyager, apparently forgetting that their shields are up, and we go to the bridge. Tuvok uses the data on the green gizmo to make our pooping go through the pretend rock ship's shields, fucking up their weapons and causing them to leg it. Later, in the mess hall, Neelix is filling Minor in on some plot details. The pretend rock ship was from a bunch of bastards who organised natural disasters like those asteroids so inhabited planets will evacuate before claiming them for themselves. Scientist managed to find out about this because reasons, was able to gather data about their ships because reasons, and was also able to find out that there was a traitor involved because reasons. I, for one, am entirely satisfied by these explanations, and we should not question any of this. Nor should we ask why he hid the green gizmo outside when he believed he was escaping alone, or wonder how he planned on retrieving it once he'd left the planet's atmosphere. Anywho, everything's fine now and we don't need to worry about the invaders ever coming back. Why? Shut the fuck up! Tuvok arrives to let Minor know her sister's been found and she trots off to make a call. Tuvok also tells Neelix that he's been commended to the captain for his bravery, but to let you know that nothing's changed between them, they end the conversation with a bit of an argument as we fly away. We got a whole lot of Tuvok and Neelix this episode, so let's have a closer look. Tuvok getting spared by Neelix for his casually dismissive attitude is rather pleasing, and plays into the arrogant pride that some Vulcans fall victim to. It's quite a fun paradox to explore, this idea that some Vulcans embrace logic over emotion to such a degree of reverence that seeing it rejected in others can cause an emotional response. A being of pure logic would treat Neelix, the very anathema of logic, as someone to judge on their own merits. That Tuvok's sense of propriety is able to be offended by Neelix shows how far off that purity of logic Tuvok is and, in doing so, I think makes him a little more relatable to us. On to Neelix, and his reminiscing about family in this episode again reinforces something I've suggested before, that his intolerably upbeat attitude is a mask, the armour he wears against having lost everything. I've also said previously that this could account for his overprotective behaviour towards Kes while they were together, and I find myself again wishing we could have further explored the psychological causes of his actions, in much the same way as I wanted to see that for Paris in Season 2. As for the plot of this one, well, perhaps we'll skip over it. I think that's only fair when the writers treated it in much the same way. End of episode. But not end of video, because the USS Pedant Patreon page is now live. If you're enjoying this foolishness to the point where you want to provide actual real money so that I can stop living off roadkill, the link in the description and on the channel homepage will take you to our shiny new begging bowl. We'll be looking at some one-off videos in the future, including an exploration of this absolute fucking clown show. If that feels like something you can get behind, then pop over to patreon.com/USSpedant to make it happen.